The intention of the Unstuck conversation is just folks I've encountered over the years who are up to, have been up to what from the outside looks like really big stuff, and in fact is really big stuff, but having conversations with them that are more about their personal human experience versus the, Instagram version of stories that we tend to see about how wonderful and glorious everything is and how easy it is to, climb a mountain. So we're interested in just kind of exploring the human side of what it takes to be up to something significant in the world, So this month we have Claire O'Hare. I met Claire 12 years ago, about that, as a client at Yahoo, and then as a client at Facebook. More importantly, she's become a dear friend. Her husband, Dick O'Hare, is a dear friend. They have 3 children I know and I've known for a pretty long time. So we have somebody today who's not just someone I know from the professional side, but somebody who I consider a close friend. So thank you for being here, Claire.
No problem. Good to be here. Excellent to be here.
Yeah. So I warned you before we started, right, that we just kind of go non-linearly. And so we're going to start. And the question that actually pops up to me first is about your kids. So tell me about your kids.
This could take the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I have 3 kids. Libby is 21, Jack just turned 18, and Ellie is 18. So a junior in college, a senior in high school, and a freshman in high school. And I have to say, I love my kids. They're fantastic. I just got back from 2 weeks in Australia with my daughter, Libby. And what was so interesting is that when you see your kids abroad, they really do make an incredible shift. She is an absolute grown-up right now. So Dick and I went over to go see her, and she had everything lined up for us. So tours and restaurants, and she took control, and I thought, I think we did a good job. I think we did a really good job. She's launched. She did call me the other day and tell me she had bed bugs. And I was like, oh, you're just gonna have to figure that out. And she will. She will absolutely figure that out. Jack just got accepted into University of Wisconsin, so he's feeling very big, and he's very proud of himself and aware of him. And Ellie, we just transferred from a private school back to the high school, and she just adores her brother, and the relationship that she has with her big brother is it's priceless. You can't. It's just so great to see. So my kids are great. I think they're becoming these incredible people who are going to do great things in the world, and hopefully they will leave the house feeling confident, having great relationships with their parents, and understanding the power of relationship and trust. So those are my kids.
So and again, given how long we've known each other, I know how big family is for you and the kids, and so talk to us about this kind of like. I don't know much. They're going to care about Yahoo, Facebook, etc. But I don't want to ask about that. But working at places like Yahoo, Facebook, etc. that aren't 9:15 to 4:45 jobs, and working that far away, and having a husband who's got a similar kind of career. What's that juggle like?
I happen to be really lucky, both Dick and I, from a very young age, from when we started before Yahoo. When we first started working, we worked at a company called CMP Media. And CMP Media was a company that was way before its time. So CMP Media, it was high-tech magazines, and we sold advertising. And there was this couple that owned this company called Jerry and Leila Leeds, and they were from Germany. And they just truly believed in the power and the role of a woman. So in the 1990s, they did job sharing, and they gave women a significant amount of time off. They loved that both Dick and I worked there. They loved that we were dating each other, and I worked for my sister. When my sister went on maternity leave, I took over her job. So I think CMP set this stage for me that actually played out in Yahoo. When I started at Yahoo, and the reason I started there is because I had 3 kids, and one of them was screaming, and one of them was running around, and somebody called me looking for a person to fill this sales and training role, and I'm like, I'll just take that job. I'll take that job. I've never done it before. I don't know how to train people at all, but I'll take that job with the caveat that I only work 2 days a week. So that wasn't bad. So if you have 3 kids and it's okay to leave them because you're only going to be gone 2 days a week, and then you're going to be back and you're going to see them. When I went to Facebook, I just assumed it was the same. It was the same flow. And when I started part-time, and when I initially started, I said I could work 5 hours a week. And my boss at the time, Mike Murphy, was like, "Could we make it 10?" I'm like, "All right, 10 hours a week, no more than that." And then that quickly went into full-time.
So Mike Murphy 10, right?
Exactly.
37.
Before he could hire, and I said, "This is great." When I got the offer, it said 5 days a week in New York, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't live in Connecticut and work 5 days a week in New York. I have 3 kids. And he said, "Well, that's the job." And I said, "Well, I can't do that." It was non-negotiable. It was absolutely non-negotiable. I would not do that. So he said, "Well, I have to talk to our new COO and to see what she thinks of it, Cheryl Sandberg." And she signed off on it, no problem at all. So I always knew that even though I had this role at Facebook, I always had the opportunity to work at home. Or go to, you would either work at home, or you'd be in LA, or you'd be in London, or you would be wherever you have to be. So I just always think that I had these jobs that CMP set up for me that allowed the children to be first.
So this is a perfect thing to dig into, right? Because you listen to this out on the outside and say, "Well, sure, if you work for Facebook, they're going to let you do that," right? But the reality is, you had to ask. You had to be clear what the priority was, and you had to ask. So where does that clarity come from? And then where does the old word chutzpah come from to just say to, even back then, Facebook was a place you wanted to be. Right? So where does the clarity come from? What your background?
I think it's a value system that it was just non-negotiable. That when you get on that train 5 days a week and you live, I think Ellie was, I think she might have been 4 years old. She was really, really young. It was just, you just know in your gut that you just can't do that, regardless amount of the money that was sitting there. And we didn't know how big Facebook was going to be, but it was still a lot of money. And I was like, you just know. Some things you just know are non-negotiable. And I was really mad at Mike Murphy when he said, "We have to go talk to Cheryl Sandberg about this." I was like, "Mike, we have worked together for so many years. You know that I'm going to work as hard as I need to." And he's like, "It doesn't matter." And it was actually one of the things that I took away in my career. He said, "If she doesn't sign off on it, it will allow people to talk about it." So by Cheryl signing off on it, it gave me the absolute freedom and confidence to do what I knew I had to do. So it was a great gift.
Okay. So I want to push in a little more on that, right? Because you just knew, this is what you said, you just knew in your gut that that's what you had to do, right? Where does that come from? So like early experiences, are there, because a lot of folks they lose time and energy and create all kinds of noise themselves because they don't have that relationship with their gut, with that sense of, "Oh, this is it." So you got any insight on where that comes from for you? Is it just like when you were 5? Was that how you were? Like I think about my daughter's like that. My daughter at the age of 14 months, it was like she knew what she wanted, and you weren't pivoting, right? So have you always had that, or
So is it a question about that decision, or
no,
just
the ability to kind of get that.
Oh no,
feeling.
I have those moments in my life that things are very, very, very clear. Not always, but there's probably about 10 of them that I was like, that's not happening. And I don't know whether it's because it's, experience of how I grew up, and, it's, sometimes I don't know where I want to go, I just know what I'm moving away from. So I just, that would probably be.
So in the conversation with Mike, was that you were clear about what you're moving away from in terms of like away from that kind of lifestyle, or was there?
Yeah, it was, it's, you don't have kids to leave them behind. To me, part of my value system is that if I have anything to give back in the world, it would be these 3 awesome kids. And that's one thing that I've always been clear about. And that's the ripple effect. So if I put 3 kids in the world and they do things, then great things, then we're okay. I'm not going to go to Africa and build houses and all that, but I do think that my responsibility is to make sure that They're good.
Yeah, that, listen, we talk about this a lot, that a version of that, the reason we've never solved for poverty is because we keep trying to solve for poverty. It's such a giant abstract issue as opposed to, what are the 3 villages I can feed,
Yeah.
sort of mindset. So I love that clarity of, how I raise my kids is how I impact the world. So, okay, you got the clarity. You got to, 8, 10, 12, whatever you said, experiences throughout your life where you feel that. The second part then is, it's one thing to have clarity. It's another to go stand in somebody like Mike Murphy's face and say, no, unless blank, right? Where does that sort of, because that's a pattern for you as well, So, and then naming yourself, right? This is what I want, and these are the boundaries. So, where does that come from, Blair?
I don't know, Al.
Same thing.
I'm not sure, Al.
Have you always been like that? I mean, is that, again, when you look back on your life, it's always...
It was the same thing when I left Facebook, where you just, and you move, and you move. You come from that voice, and you can't trick yourself. Everybody knows you can't trick yourself.
Most people try though.
Yeah. I'm not sure where it comes from, but it's definitely there.
It's great. We had somebody I know here last month, Nick Wedge.
Yeah.
Nick worked for Claire for a while on Facebook. Yeah. I think he worked for you, right?
He did
interning.
I think he did some interns,
I
internships.
forget, it's so long ago. But he talked about this notion of pillars, right? So he orients his life every year, 2 years, 3 years, whenever it feels right, of re-clarifying, all right, here are my pillars. For this next phase, these 3 things are what I'm orienting life around. And everything else is a clear no. Right? So he's got this kind of formalized way of approaching what you're speaking to around clarity of the gut and then clarity of yes or no on things, yeah? Any kind of process like that for you, or is it more in the moment?
I think it's in the moment, but when you're talking about it, I do think it's clarity of family. And that's to me is the core and where I come from. And if that would be off, then everything else would fall apart. It would fall apart. I can remember talking to Al one time, and he's like, so tell me what everybody's doing. I'm like, well, Dick is great, and I kind of went through everything. I was like, our dogs are even happy. And you looked at me and you said, good soil. Good soil. And I often think about it, it's like, we work really hard to make sure there's good soil. And I just think making sure that you know that, and you work on that.
Yeah, great. That reference, it's just one of the principles we work with is that we're soil for each other, right? That there's nothing you got to do to facilitate somebody else's development in the way that we often try to push, advice and direction and 5 steps to this and 12 steps. Sometimes that's useful, but the most powerful thing to provide is soil, rich, fertile soils where the seed can kind of hang out and eventually germinate, right? So yeah, you and Dick have clearly created very rich, fertile soil out there, not just for your 3 kids, but for the community. Like I've been to events at your place, right? The barn. Tell them about the barn.
So in Sandy, we had this garage, and Sandy knocked down with trees this garage, and we're like, oh, that's a bummer. That's a lot of insurance money. So we decided to build a new garage. It's a barn. It doesn't really look like a barn, and it's really just a little pool house. But we created this open space, and it looks back onto the back of our house, and it's all windows. And we use it there to pull people together. So that's where my business now is based out of. But we have parties every Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, and we call them keggers. So that's about 20 years that we've been doing that. Now the keggers at the barn. We do lots of speaking events. We do kids events. We just, Al's come and spoke at the barn a few times. We bring women together. We bring couples together, and it all just happens at the barn. And the barn is just a place where people connect and have fun. It's great.
So this is definitely a theme I wanted to explore, and since we're kind of in the area now, soil, space. You for as long as I've known you, have been a space maker for people. Yeah.
So the barn is a manifestation of it. What you provide for your kids is a manifestation of it. So at work, you had a similar impact, yeah? So I'd love for you to just talk about anything that pops up for you in terms of the things that stand out most for you in terms of kind of making space for other people. It could be individuals, a collective, the client council I know is big space, right? Just what are your experiences in making space for people in the workplace, right? Being soil in the workplace.
So at Facebook, I'll talk about it and then I'll talk about it with Livewell. So at Facebook, we're at a time that we're just went public and nobody liked Facebook. I don't think anybody ever likes Facebook. They just don't like it. They don't like Zuck. He's such a nice guy. But we were moving so fast that the product and engineering team was not aligned with our customers, our advertisers. So they were creating these advertising products that were not solving advertisers' business problems. So there was just this disconnect, and they kept breaking, and I'll never forget, I ran this survey, and this one guy said, you're working so hard to pull the money in the front door, you're letting it out the back door. And it really hit me. I was like, we are really tired, and we're letting that money go out the back door. So once we went public, we thought, we really do need this group of advertisers behind us. So we started what was called the Client Council. And it was the 15th, it's still running.
Is it really?
Yeah, Sam's still running it, and I think it's, 50 times better than when I did it. But it's the 15 to 20 biggest advertisers in the world, whether they're an agency or a direct company, and they would come together, and we would do it 4 times a year, and we would pull together the key decision makers from Facebook, and we would give them an inside view as to what was happening. And that could be what was happening with our growth, what was happening with our products, we would just give them an inside view, and then we would sit and listen. And when we listened, they would tell us the things that were getting in the way. You don't have a mobile product, you don't have enough, you don't have a product around emerging markets, you don't have a measurement product, and by the time we would be back with them in the next 4 months, we would have a solution for all of it. Because everybody sitting in the room from the Facebook side was the product people, the engineering people, so everybody was bought into it. And it turned out to be this space where people just connected, aligned, and then developed this great trust for each other. So when you're out in front of the market, and creating a market, like Facebook is, you're bound to make mistakes. It has to happen. And if you don't have a group of friends behind you to help you through that, you're not going to make it. So the Client Council is this group of friends that every time Facebook tries to do something new and it falls on it trips a little bit, the Client Council will be very honest with them and telling them what their opinion is as to how to make it better. So it was an incredible alignment tool from engineering all the way to our advertisers. And it was, I think it's actually defined the relationship that Facebook has. And I think there's all different, now it's all over the world, and there's so many different flavors of it, but it's a fantastic organization. In terms of creating space for people at Livewell, which is a small jewelry company that I started as I was leaving Facebook, something interesting has happened, and that is that I've hired these people that just need to figure themselves out. And we might not do it the fastest, we might not get there in the most profitable way, but we're all in it together. We all totally support and respect and trust each other, but we're all just trying to figure out who we're supposed to be. And it's a quirky bunch of group of people, but it really does work. And I do think part of Livewell is not about the jewelry, it's about the space for people. That's what I think.
Wow. There you go. It's a hiring criteria. We're trying to figure it out. So
I'll give you space.
No, it's both of those stories, right? One at a massive scale, right? Facebook and the 15 biggest advertisers on the planet, who inherently have competing interests, some of them, maybe all of them. And in the context of Livewell, right? Both of those fly in the face of how we're supposed to form groups, right? We're supposed to form groups that are functional and fit together like as a jigsaw puzzle. You got this skill, I got that skill, she's got the other skill, we fit together, and now we make a complete skill, and now we execute these 5 feet, flies in the face of that. So, what have you learned about, now, so you've done this multiple times, in large systems, now small startup systems. What have you learned? You know, how do you have to approach building a group like that in order to not have it go sideways? Because it can go sideways. Right? The business can fall apart as you're tending to the space.
Well, I think the most important thing is I think you need a shared vision around what you're creating and a commitment to that vision, regardless of what your role is, and then the trust and the relationship fills in the gaps. And I do think the vision has to be bought in by everyone, or else they shouldn't be in that space. And then you move, and then those relationships start happening, and then you try new things, and you make mistakes, and you keep moving because you're supporting each other through it.
So the orientation is the relationships, not the work.
It's a relationship.
Yeah. Great. So what do? Your legitimate trust relationship and something in the work goes fundamentally south. I mean, like existential threat south. How do you deal with that? Oh, how do you deal with that? I gotta imagine it's come up somewhere along the line, right, where somebody just blew something so significant, either Facebook or Livewell or any of the other places, and yet it was still in the context of a real committed relationship.
That's hard.
It's okay. You're live.
I know. In some ways at Facebook it's easier because it's still within it was somebody else's business, so you were still executing a job or role. So in some ways I think it was a little bit easier. When it's your own business, you just have to go back and you have to think, well, why are you really doing it? Like, so you messed up an order, or I don't think anything that significant has happened that it's gone so sideways that it's like, oh. I mean, I've been super frustrated a few times, but you just talk it through, take some space, get your shit together, and then be honest and direct and keep moving through it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can't speak to Livewell because I haven't spent any time with that group, but that's what I recall there from the old days, as it were. Right? Is that your approach was, and you tell me if this aligns with your experience. Your approach was to not fail to confront it, right? Because this. If our normal inclination is, well, this is business and we don't deal with the relationships, or we deal with them at a superficial level, and so you're flying in the face of that. Folks who try to then orient on relationship tilt the other way, or they don't confront. Well, because we like each other, we emphasize the relationship. But one of the things I recall, you're never terribly shy about addressing. Okay, this isn't working. It's got to get taken care of.
It's easier when you trust the person.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's much easier. Where are they going to go? They're still going to be your friend.
There's no friends in business.
I'll never forget the advice that you gave me. I was having a hard time with somebody, and I was ranting. This person kept blowing me off. Do you remember the story? And she kept blowing me off, and I couldn't believe she kept blowing me off, and I kept noodling my way in there so she wouldn't blow me off, and she kept blowing me off, and I was furious. And I was, of course, gossiping about it to Al, and I was, and he said, "Are you done?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm done." He said, "Well, are you committed to that relationship?" I'm like, "No." He said, "Well, then move on." He said, "If you're committed to the relationship, then say something. If you're not committed to the relationship, then shut up." I think that's what you told me. And I'll never forget it. I was like, "Oh, I'm so not committed to that relationship," and I never talked about it again, other than to tell the story.
I hope I didn't say shut up.
I think you might have. You're like, "Is that okay?"
I don't know if it's like that. Yeah, this is, and again, we tend to bias on one side or the other, right? Either get hung up on stuff that doesn't matter to us, i.e. it's not a committed relationship, or it is a committed relationship, and great, now I have to go deal with it, right? So you would go deal with it, yeah? I do now. I'm glad you're here. We didn't have enough cameras. I'm glad you're here. So let's take another tangent.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Tell us about bigger, not smaller.
Oh my God. Okay, I haven't talked about it in a while.
You eliminate what you talk about.
Oh my gosh. So I did a lot of work with Al, and obviously coming from Facebook, the whole thing was, it's a very purpose-driven company, and you can't get away from it. And the work that Al did with us, I can remember him just pushing us, like, what's your purpose, what's your purpose? And I finally, I was like, I can remember I was talking to you about this, I'm like, it's so silly, but I think my purpose is to just make people feel bigger, not smaller. And he said, well, that's it. I'm like, no, it's got to be something bigger than that. And I was like, that's it? He's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, oh, well, then what do I do? How do I market it? How do I make it something? He said, you don't. You just live it. And so it's one thing that I share with my kids all the time. No matter what you do, this is a moment. You cannot humiliate somebody. You can't make them smaller. It's just never okay. It's like, you can be mad and they'll call me on it. So yeah, that's bigger, not smaller.
That's really, you get codified maybe in that moment, but that's been an approach to life for a long time, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what have you learned about that? Because that's a tough place to live sometimes. People give you lots of reasons to take your head off. Apparently they've experienced that. People give you a reason to the equivalent of cutting you off on the road. They give you a reason to flip them off and cut them back off, right? The life equivalents of that.
Yeah, I think the mantra in my head keeps me accountable. And when you're just about to roll your eyes at somebody or just dismiss them, you just have to think, bigger, not smaller, bigger, not smaller, bigger, not smaller. And it quickly shifts you, quickly. And so it's an accountability thing for me. And then sometimes it's hard because when I do get frustrated, obviously I get frustrated, I'm like, I think I could probably be doing more. Like I could, I'm not sure really I'm living my best bigger, not smaller moment. So it helps me think through that.
So this is really your relationship to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Trust my gut, say what there is for me to say, orient from bigger, not smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that's who you treat yourself to be. Good.
Thank you.
So, I'm curious, kind of if bigger, not smaller is where you orient from. Right? The last piece is exactly, where I'd love to go, where you said, I don't know if I'm doing enough. Right? How do you calibrate? Because if you're walking around with a mindset and an orientation, a compass that says bigger, not smaller, I'd imagine that's an easy one to fall into, kind of a certain kind of martyrdom about, like, I have to do, it's like you said, I have to do more, I have to do more for this issue or that person or this, right? And then if you add to that a real premium on relationships, I gotta imagine there's some kind of balancing factor that keeps you from becoming just, falling into servitude with everybody you're around. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. Well, the way that I think you've actually helped me with this is you start with yourself, making sure you feel bigger, not smaller, right? Every day, whatever that means to you. And then I go to my family to make sure that they're feeling bigger, not smaller, but not enabling them, which is, hard to do sometimes. and then I go to the business. And then after that, it's, you try to, then I try to go with my extended family. But sometimes you just don't have any more time. You can just, you just have to say, I kind of go out those 3 levels, and that sometimes is it. That's all I got. It's the ripple effect again. So, yeah, but I try not to, get into that servitude.
Yeah.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
But there are some times that it really pushes up against me, and there's a few relationships I'm like, God, you've got to be doing better here. This is not good. So I do beat myself up on that.
It's an invitation to you, folks who take on that sort of accountability in the world. There's an invitation, and I tend to hang out with a lot of those folks because it's a lot of our work is, and there's an invitation to, again, to martyr oneself, to kind of fall into, tip over to one side of I have to make, there's a difference, right? Bigger, not smaller, as a place to come from versus bigger, not smaller, as an obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I have to do, and you don't fall in
No,
there.
I don't, and because that could be very noisy and very that could be busy work.
Yeah.
So no.
Good. Okay. And I think you reference again, you mentioned with your kids, you just said the word now ripple, right? There's a real clarity for you about this kind of, we talk about it as portfolio, like, everything we're doing is having an impact. It's a portfolio of impact, and part of that portfolio I'm not going to get to see mature.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it doesn't mean that there's a bigger impact. Right? Is that something that's kind of conscious for you? This notion of ripple, this notion of whatever I'm doing, it may well be 100x more impact than I can see right now.
I do. I also think about it from one thing that I realized, and one of the reasons why I left Facebook is that I'm not a scale person. Like I'm not gonna, I could never, I'm not good at scaling a program. So I could start a program, I could get it up and running, but then bringing it globally, oh my God, I could never do that. It's not my sweet spot at all. So I think when it comes to bigger, not smaller, or just even how I approach things, it's like, I think I'm actually gonna make a difference in that person's life. So I think about it one person at a time.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Versus scale.
Something I agree with. We just had this conversation yesterday. Somebody was in here talking about, and it's great. It's what they're gonna. I actually feel pretty confident they're gonna do this, but I can't get my head around. So I'm a parish priest. I support what you're doing, but
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a real. Again, it flies in the face of a lot of the mythology we have around how we use life in a meaningful way, right? What you've repeatedly pointed to is that you can do truly big things by focusing here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One person, one thing, right? That has a massive impact potential. And certainly for that person. Yeah. Okay. So, what are you doing for fun these days?
I just got back from 2 weeks in Australia. That was fun. We're doing some fun stuff up in Martha's Vineyard. So we have 2 little houses up there that we're putting a little spit shine on and getting them out there on Airbnb. And so that's kind of fun because it's fun to see it. You put your creativity in it and then you're like, oh my God, people really like it. That's awesome. I would say this last year has actually been really fun seeing Jack and Ellie grow up and just have a blast with each other. So yeah, that would be it. And Dick works in the area, so we're lucky enough to spend a lot of time with each other. So we have kind of a fun time.
So I asked that not as a non sequitur, but to tie into the previous thought, because one of the things if I look back on my experience with you, Claire, that you've always been good with is, and again, folks sometimes just don't pay attention here, is the making myself bigger, not smaller, kind of making sure I've got avenues open that Lift me up, yeah?
Mhm.
So again, has that always been a pattern for you?
Yeah, it has been, because I think, my mom taught me this. I was number 5 of 6 kids. I was the youngest girl. And then there was Stephen, that's what I always say. I was the youngest, and then Stephen came along. And she had a hard time. And I don't have to get into it here, but it was a busy life for her. And I'll never forget she told me, she's like, you have to take care of yourself first. And she said, if you don't, then the whole ship's gonna go down. So I took that really seriously, and yeah, work out 4 times a week, eat healthy, see friends, mix up the friends, go out with my sisters. Yeah.
And you can get into it here, whatever it, in any of these topics is, right? So, good, but you got that lesson early in life.
Very early, yeah. And it's actually, it's frustrating when you see somebody not do it. I'm like, God, what are you doing? Just take care of yourself. Everybody else will be better.
Yeah, I find it's actually a form of selfishness to again, I'll use the word, to martyr oneself. Right? That there's actually a certain self-indulgence in it when you're not engaging in self-care.
Yeah.
It allows you to hang on to a certain story that allows you to hide from your accountability.
Yeah.
And that's not to negate anyone's difficult experience, right? But yeah, it's a way to hide sometimes. So I'm going to turn it over to them soon, but I'm curious if you look out, because you guys are not that far away. Ellie is freshman, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 to 4 years away. Right? So if you look out 5 years, what's on the horizon for you? Did you see anything out there that is part of next? We talk about next a lot here because it's part of the name of the thing. Is there a next out there that's like, okay, everything's great, I love what I'm doing, I'm very happy, and when more space opens up, here's a next I'm really intrigued.
I think the next is, and Dick and I talk about this a lot, but I think the next is just always be looking for something new and fun to create. And so the way that we look at what we're doing, we have Livewell, we have these 2 places in the Vineyard. Dick's got some stuff going on. We have all these little portfolios, and water what grows. So we keep watering the things that aren't working. But we're always on the lookout for what else we could be doing. Just on the creative side and having fun with it. When friends are around and it brings family together, and it's you just have fun doing it. So we're always, we could have 3 or 4 different businesses that we're doing at any given point in time. God only knows what we'll do with the house in New Canaan, but it's anything is open on that. But we're always just looking as to what should we invest in, what should we start. And we've had some funny ideas, like maybe we should start a laundromat, and we're going to be the delivery service for all the Airbnbs and all the places that are being rented, and we're just going to, they don't even have to wash their sheets, we're just going to plop them, and then they just give us their old sheets of work. I mean, we do this all the time. And I have a blast doing it.
It's like a version of game night. It's kind of entrepreneur game night. Business possible. That's great.
Yeah. And now it's so exciting. There's like anything can happen. So every time you read something and you're like, oh my God, that's such a great business. So I think that there's going to be a couple fun businesses out there that we're not going to spend all of our time. Like we're going to balance it, a couple hours a day.
So I want to calibrate that because when people hear 2 or 3 businesses, you can hear it as businesses, but that's not actually what you mean, right? Like there are things like Livewell, but places to continue to expand what your commitment is.
Yeah, and to learn and to create something meaningful that people feel great about.
Yeah. This, I work with young folks, right? Folks who are early career, 20s a lot, and have for 20 years. And this is the part that I just find so difficult to convey is with folks like you, and so many folks I've gotten to meet on the corporate side, how many people there are that don't, that recognize that working is an opportunity to play and explore and learn and continue to say and contribute, and right, as opposed to an obligation and a burden. Right? And again, which is not to say that there aren't circumstances, God knows, talk about my story in this community, my family story coming over as immigrants, so not to dismiss the kind of, aspects of life that are weighty, but any work is a container for what you said, learning, creating, exploring, contributing. I've codified recently a clarity, distilling stuff down to try to pass it along to this place. You tell me I think you might be the first person publicly I've shared this with, so you tell me what clues are this. Tell me your reaction to this. Education and work, right, which is everything we're focused on here. I think the simple distillation of those two are the following. Work is where I go to contribute to other human beings and be contributed to. That is what work is. Full stop. There are things attached to it, money, but what the purpose of work is it's where I go to contribute to other human beings and be contributed to. Whether that's at a particular office or here, helping to clean up this thing later, that's work. It's about contributing to somebody else or being contributed to. And then education is where I go to explore and express myself. That's it. And so, it's tough to convey to young people sometimes the clarity that you've got. A lot of them say that work, starting a business isn't about, laying out a business plan and a spreadsheet and making a pile of money. Those things are part of it. But it's about learn, create, explore, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun. I do think it's going to be what keeps us young and smart and fresh. The world is moving so fast. If you don't throw yourself in it, it's, I'll be gone.
Yeah, the world is moving fast. That's a whole other conversation. Let's open it up to these guys. Thoughts, comments, questions, observations. Somebody feel like singing?
You said ask for what you want, and I have a question. Do you think that it's possible for people, and women in particular, to have the power to ask for quality of life issues not connected to children?
Absolutely. I don't think that children should be a part of that. I don't think it should be attached. I think it's sometimes a great excuse to hide behind. But I do think that you can ask for it. And
Can you give me an example of where it sounds to me kind of like children are leverage. It's hard to say no. Oh, she has children. But how do you make that ask when you're not saying, I have to take care of kids, or I have to take care of my elder parents? Is there a way to say, I just need this for me?
yeah, I guess I might be hung up on the ask. I'm not sure I actually ever asked.
Demand?
But if you have a great relationship with the people that you work for and you're aligned on that, then they would know that that's what you needed and that's what you were going to take. And if you didn't, then it gets a little trickier. But I would always just make sure that you were with those people that knew that, and it doesn't have to do anything to do with children. It's just because.
If I may, actually kind of comment, kind of answer to your question, is that I'm working as a research scientist for a company that is conducting a lot of interviews, technical interviews. And when I look at the list of positions, everything was full-time. I asked my boss, is it necessary to have everything full-time? And then I said, what do you mean? But what if somebody wants to work, I don't know, 1 day remote, or 4 days a week, or maybe half a day per week? I guess, well, actually I don't mind. So why nothing is written? Oh, this is how we are writing the offer. This is how everybody is writing the offers. So it told actually the company had no issue with you or anybody working in a more flexible time. but no one actually thought that it's necessary to write it down. Another justification was that they kind of prefer to have a full-time worker, so it was more like wishful thinking. I wish to have a full-time, but actually I don't mind to have other kind of arrangement. And there were people in my company who basically asked, saying, well, I would like to actually have a 1 day from home or actually working 4 out of 5 days, because I would like to, for example, learn and kind of develop my skills in free time. So actually having a rhetoric saying, well, I would like to have 1 day less because I'm going to be happy, because I'm going to learn at home, and therefore I'm going to be more productive, employer is going to be happy. And actually also being very afraid of asking myself about anything. Finally, when I asked about the possibility to move somewhere else, to be closer to my wife, they said like, oh sure. Why am I so afraid for someone who involves to actually ask about having my job be more flexible?
Predictably on Facebook. I just read Sucked by Roger McNamee.
Yeah, I haven't read it.
And you said that Mark is a nice person. And Roger McNamee says he's a nice person, but he has made terrible mistakes in terms of predatory behavior on people's also obviously. So how do such nice people make such terrible mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an opinion. Yeah, I didn't find him that way at all. And
Well, you don't think that Facebook has made terrible mistakes, terrible abuse of privacy, and use it, and a lot of stuff to do now for destabilization of democracy.
it's such a big thing.
That's what they did. You don't know.
Yeah, really.
I withdraw my question.
That was like the deeper question why you were he grew this guy from not working on Facebook and getting it to the next level, and then he thought he was still values something that maybe what you're getting at.
No, I think
Purpose, and
Roger felt that he believed that New York was different, and he wasn't just driven from London. And then he had a good vision, but then he after a while felt just it.
So, if you want to respond to that, I'm happy to respond, but you know, hypotheticals and, I don't know, it's difficult to answer any question about Mark, absent Mark, right? I mean, but I like the question in its generic form is how do people who are legitimately committed and good people make decisions that have an impact that in hindsight ends up being really problematic. And that maybe even in foresight, had they done it, would have been obvious that they were problematic, right? I find that a useful question.
Yeah.
And I have a question to follow up that question. Why do you do it? Because you've all done it, I've done it. I think I'm a good person. But I've made decisions that, you know, maybe that's scale, right? So that issue,
It's all,
yeah. So I sense you have a strong opinion on this. It's just my intuition kicking in. But my point being, so it may well be at a different scale. Whether you're right or not about that, I don't want to get into here, because I'm just not sure where we would get with it. But the point being, even if it's at a different scale, we've all done this. And again, I'm as I said, a parish priest. You know, the world do what it will do. I want to understand what the people in front of me do. So we've all done this. I'm a good person. I've made a decision that if I stopped and actually thought about it, I know it's a bad decision. And then down the road, it's like, holy crap, was that a bad decision? Let me, you want to say something first and then,
Well,
yeah.
I think you just answered it actually when you kept talking. As you were saying it, I was thinking about myself immediately. So that your follow-up question was exactly that. But I mean, I'm an inherently good person and good intentions with everything that I do, and I've made some terrible mistakes. And it always seems like it's when I'm moving too fast. And when I'm trying to move too fast. And you said if I had stopped and thought about it, right? So that's where I feel like you kind of answered the question. But it's for me. It's for me.
When you're moving too fast.
Yeah.
And is it the case, I mean, for me, it's I'm moving too fast, and the thing I'm moving too fast on, that aspect of it is actually good.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I failed to take
If I
into
didn't
account this
stop-
thing. That fits me, yeah.
From a children's defense. It seems to me that recognizing these major technologies, where they are inevitably going, that is creating this kind of situation. In fact, McNamee is worse on Google and Amazon than he is on Facebook. That's the impression that I've gotten, despite the topic, the title of the book. That's right. That's right. So it's not that Mark made a mistake. It's that all of these companies that are doing this kind of thing, gathering data on people, or have the opportunity to gather data on people. If you are that tempted, and that is what drives the power of the growth of the company, how can you resist? And if one does resist, it's like capitalism. If one does resist, somebody else will do it.
This gets to the point where people talk about the Silicon Valley, tech industry doesn't like to be regulated. They say, well, we're moving too fast. And, you know, this gets back to capitalism. So you know, unless a capitalist are restrained, the worst actors may behave in ways that disadvantage, don't just harm the public, but disadvantage the good actors.
So I am legitimately willing to host a conversation here on this. I think it's a worthwhile conversation. And I don't want to have it in this forum because this forum is about personal development, right? So I'm serious, Steve. I'm very happy to, I think that's really a powerful thing to get into. So let's pick a date, let's do it.
So I have a question about your experience there, or this might be a little bit of a morbid question, so feel free not to answer it. So a lot of what I'm hearing is that family, especially your immediate family, the family that you have helped provide soil for and build and nourish, and those relationships is really at the center of where you feel you can make your most significant value, at least through your own lens, contributions, right? And it's also where you get that nourishment in return, it sounds like, right? So again, morbid question potentially. What if that falls away, right? Let's not get into like how, but what if that falls away? What do you think would happen to that commitment and that space where you have put that energy?
Well, oddly, I've often thought about what would happen if something happened. And in strange ways, when Libby was in high school and she was, she had a blast. And, I would just be like, the Uber would have to call me, and I was doing all these things to prevent anything from happening. Your curfew has to be this, and I was putting these restrictions trying to control it. And finally I realized these controls that I'm putting on this family that is so precious to me is actually creating the reverse. It's like I'm putting her in a worse position. And I'll never forget, it was a moment, but I had this moment, I'm like, I gotta let this go. What's gonna be is gonna be, and I have no control over it. I've got to enjoy every single day of it, slurp it up, and if something happens to it, then something happens to it. and I hope I can get through it. What else can I do? When you leave 2 kids at home and you're with your husband on a plane coming back from Australia, I'm like, that's a lot of water down there.
Yeah.
Oh, can they fly a little bit faster? And you're so happy when you get home. You just gotta love it. Every day.
And by the way, eventually something will happen to it.
Yeah.
That something may be that I leave, you leave, right? Nothing happens to it. But that's still happening to each other. The separation is inevitable.
I don't even want to think of that, something gonna happen to my dog. I'm like, oh my God. Something's gonna happen to Bo. He's 11. You know, so cute.
We've got a 13-year-old. Living age is more obvious out, but it's
Yeah.
Like it's the first year grad students. It's intense. They're week 1 of grad school. Eric here, who runs the program at the University of Vienna, the grad program, the orientation. So in case you're all not aware of it, or nobody's reminded you recently, you're all going to die.
Now let's go from
Hopefully
there.
not your time here, but you're
Right.
going to die, so relax. It's fantastic. People think, so what's the opposite of death? Easy. What's the opposite of death? Is it? Life. No, it's not.
Birth.
The opposite of death is birth. Life includes both.
Okay.
Being afraid of death is being afraid of birth. And so, next impossibility, the way you're living your life, you can't have the new if you're not willing to let go of the old. It's not running towards the old, but I mean, or I'm sorry, it's not running towards letting go of the old, but it's inevitable. It's an inevitability. I won't let you guys off the hook for the personal question I asked based on Steve's mild curiosity about Zuck. Why do you do bad things? I'm curious what your experience is. One was I rush, right? Why do I do bad things even though I'm a good person?
I thought it speaks to both points that were made and touches on this idea of preservation. This feeling of like trying to be bigger, not smaller, but coming from this place of fear or lack, and saying like I'm generally a good person, so like I can make this decision, like even if it's a little bad, or maybe I can, contain the bad that might come from it, but I want to preserve happiness, or I want to feel better, or convince yourself that it's okay to make it. And you're trying to survive or thrive, coming from this.
I get this one thing I don't want to lose, and I get this may not be the best choice, but I really got to maintain this, and this won't be so bad. And then I look back on it later, I was like, oh God, what did I do?
Or like what she said, I can control the bad,
Control
right?
the
Like,
bad.
it's okay, there's gonna be some bad that's gonna come out of this, but like, I've got that contained, like I can.
And the fear, I think, is fear-based.
There's a fear of, right, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose the thing I'm trying to preserve, or I'm going to lose the opportunity I'm chasing towards that just got me, rushed. Yeah.
Never thought it would go that way.
Yeah.
You didn't ask enough people, you didn't research enough, you tried to make the decision yourself without talking to people who might know that it's gonna go that way,
Yeah.
and you just never thought it would go that way.
I don't find, and I'm absolutely willing to have a forum on your question, so I'm not trying to dodge it. But I
No,
don't.
I withdraw. I didn't realize it. I just thought we could. But I didn't realize it.
You go down that path, but as long as it's
I
personal.
didn't want to be offensive because I'm a nice person.
No, you're actually very welcome to go down that path, but as long as it's personal. The promise of this community is personal development and personal exploration, so happy, but you just quickly let me
Maybe I
say.
should explore my mean side.
I want to see your nice side, actually. I haven't seen anything but the nice side, but let's see the mean side. Because it's part of you, so just a quick thought, so 53 Fortune 100 companies, a whole bunch of startups and tech companies and student groups, and here, Europe, Asia. I have yet to meet the big bad evil corporate monster. Every single time I've met human beings who do things like this, some of them operate at scale. Okay? That's not like, again, I don't have any commentary on that particular topic because it deserves more space than, again, we can give it here in a couple minutes. So I don't deny, I mean, listen, we don't buy anything Nestle or related to Nestle, right? So I don't deny that there are impacts that are, it's not just, okay, let's let it off the hook because, that's not what I'm suggesting. But I can't find an evil in the world, Steve. I can't locate myself at a different scale. Literally not one. From the most horrible thing you can imagine, I can see the precedent for where that comes from, right? And so, given what our commitments are here, it's just useful for us to not abstract folks like something and to acknowledge if he did do what a lot of folks feel he did. It was a human flaw, it wasn't a monstrous flaw. Not that that changes the collapse of democracy and 5 centuries of totalitarian rule that we're about to come. Yeah, please.
Moving fast and breaking things, perfection versus getting something good out of it. What's your
It was
take
so
on?
fun. It was so fun. I have to say, it was, because there was, in a lot of ways, that there was just not a lot of rules. And, I mean, because it was such a purpose-driven company, so the purpose of Facebook at the time, and now it's not a lot different, it's different words. It's just to make the world more open and connected. So every group within the organization took that as a derivative and did what they had to do to make it. So my job, I thought, was how do I make advertisers more open and connected, and instead of just being a regular media company. And we would take these mantras and it would be move fast and break things. So you just wouldn't overthink it. You'd be like, oh my God, I think we're going to start this client council thing. How do you think it's going to go? I don't know, let's just give it a shot. And done is better than perfect. There was one that was great, and it was all around. It was actually coming from the client council, and a lot of it wasn't from the client council, it was from this survey institute called State of the Market, and it was called Ship Love. So whatever you did, you had to always make sure that you did it with the ultimate respect to the customer. So it was like this ship love. So it was so much fun that, you would just, a new mantra would come out and be like, oh my God, that's great, let's do that one. And we would just run at things. And that was the culture at the time. When I left, I couldn't believe this. When I left, I think that there was like maybe 8,000 people at the company. There's over 50,000 now.
Oh.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So I joined when there were 70 million users. So you could do that. You can't do, now you can't have 50,000 people and say, oh, done is better than perfect. All right, good job.
Move fast and break things, got part B, right? Move
Yeah.
fast and leave stable infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they still do all the, I think they still do all the posters. I have one of the posters at home, one of the original ones, and it's great. We gave it to, it was, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And we gave it to all the client council members at the first client council meeting. And I look at it a lot. What would you do if you weren't afraid?
We have one in Holbert, and Fortune Favors the Bold.
Fortune Favors the Bold. There's two.
So, I'm sorry, Lou, something else? There is a thing that pops up for me that we talk about a lot in the program we're developing, and are there any Holbert folks here other than me? Any of your students here? Yeah. They're all working on a big project, right? So we are in a world where kind of move fast and break things. This whole thing, the side of that thing, if the one board you can't see, these little posters, the one that you can't see, that's just a white face. On the other side of it, it says "Get shit done." Right? It's that mindset. It's that So we are in a world where folks are encouraged to kind of just move, and experiment and play. And well, it's really liberating and wonderful, right? And kids like I say kids, people like students at Holborn. This is the next generation of finance, right? The discipline that's going to design the world. Right? For the last 20, 30 years, you make the case that the function of finance was the most important function.
data scientists and coders are the, you know, and there is a case to be made for, we need to pay more attention to humanities, liberal arts, the moral education of the next generation of rulers. Right? Because they are getting access to lots of new experimentation and work, right? And not because they're bad people or monsters, but because they're human. I get curious about how we're going to make sure that they, because the finance guys and women, at least, you know, had to take a philosophy class, an undergrad, and an art class or two, or even if they didn't pay attention, they had to get exposed to it. A lot of these folks are just foregoing traditional liberal arts education altogether and getting this deep dive into these technologies. So now I'm drifting off into Steve's space around you now. I'm not sure where I'm going with that. Other than saying, anyone has any thoughts on that? It's just, you know, the conversation kind of raises that for me.
So, not a hostile question.
It wasn't a hostile question. I just didn't want to answer it.
How important is it to you in organizations that they have a defined set of values?
Very important. It's, I mean, those are your guideposts. And you know, there's a couple other companies that folks from Facebook jumped over to and left those companies very quickly because they didn't have a defined set of values. And you can't create the future without them because you've got nothing to hold on to. You've got nothing to trust. So I think it's the most important thing to have really clear set values, whether it's in a company or a family or whatever. Yeah. And at Facebook, it was very defined. And then again, you know, it's the people who went over to younger companies. I'm not sure what Nick said about Uber when it was like, but they couldn't. And I'm not talking about Uber, but they couldn't stay there. It was like, oh my God, it's just an advertising company, or you know, they were in and out. That company didn't like the Facebook folks, and the Facebook folks didn't like that. Blah, didn't work. So. Anybody else?
Just, Al, as you were talking about the students and the future and so forth, and this talk about values and so forth, really makes me think that move fast and break things is one aspect of being in that space. But moving fast and breaking things under the principle of bigger, not smaller, is really different. So that really changes things for me. Makes me feel greater trust and understanding of what's really at work.
Because there's the value system around it.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like the underpinning of any good, you know, organization that's going to expand, or any endeavor at all, is the trust in the people that are around the idea that you're pushing forward. And to me, you know, if we leave it open to people to just sort of find their way, that some people may pick up the trust part and some people may not. And so I think like that as a foundational underpinning of moving forward as a society should be pretty well kind of grounded somewhere. And I think looking at what's going on in our culture now, and that people, you know, think it's okay to not tell the truth to everybody. I think that's, you know, that's where we're really getting cut off at the knees in terms of our culture. If we don't have the trust, then there's no real way forward, I think. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
Maybe that's the little more critical.
So you can listen.
Building trust.
You can get me into that topic. It's a good point in time, though, to just that gorgeous piece of art. You see it? And
No.
In the office, you can see. Eric Davis is the artist. Tell us about that.
Oh no. Read it up, read up, it's not my show. Thank you.
Just, and in the
Thank
context,
you.
this last piece of the conversation, read what's up there and what that, what for Eric that piece is about, yeah. It is, you know, and I'm happy for people to figure out how to do this at scale, it's a scale conversation, but this, you know, curriculum for the 21st century, like this is all we're trying to do, you know, is introduce these kind of conversations. Because we
Remember
are.
when I told you what Libby said when she was
Please.
getting ready to pick her major at Bucknell? And she was like, I just wish there was a major in relationships. I think I'd be great at that. I'm like, what? Really? I think you're on the right
On to
track.
some-
Right. So she's like, yeah, they just want to, but they don't have it here. I'm like, I don't think I have it anywhere.
Yeah, and it's not something to get done in 4 years, right?
Think about well, I have to say, coming from a broken home myself, think about how many problems kids from any environment where you don't have a solid foundation. Your family has a solid foundation. You put it there. My family didn't have a solid foundation. I had to find it. You know, and along the way, you make mistakes. You know, you're human. You don't know who to ask. The trust wasn't there to begin with. So, you know, that's a huge idea, to have a curriculum on relationships and how to deal with people and what's the right way to move forward. I mean, why don't we have that? You know, I think it makes sense, especially from a corporate perspective, just to know how you're going to work with and relate to people.
We hired Al.
Well, there you are.
Paul's got such a big grin as you're talking here. Managing Director of Youth Next, Paul Mike in the background. Yeah, that is what the core of the curriculum is. It's what's inside the Trojan horse, what we're trying to do.
Awesome.
I was gonna say, doesn't Disney have that curriculum? I'm totally kidding. According to Disney, relationships are easy, right? There's a happy ending.
Never.
It's, you know, it's everybody we've had in here for this thing, Claire, you know, continue the trend, right? The issue of relationships is not a casual transactional concern. You know, for those of you who come to a lot of these, it's not a casual concern. It's not a transactional concern. It's not a set of criteria concern. It is an embodied way of being. It's an acknowledgement that I don't know if you know you may not say it this way, but for me, it's an acknowledgement that I can't be human alone. And so therefore, if I can't enter into a relationship, I can't be human. Right? And as we start moving quicker and quicker, and as the technologies get more and more expansive, that kind of the curriculum of these kind of conversations, I think get more and more critical. You know? And the kind of space that you hold, and I love the mindset, right? If it's just my kids, that's enough. If it's just my kids, if it's just my neighborhood, if it's just the people who show up at my barn, you have no clue what those ripples are going to be. You have absolutely no clue. Yeah, wonderful. What else?
I got a question about your family, Claire. So you, not directly about your family, but so you sort of seems like you're continuing to progress, creatively in a business perspective. How much of that, and when did you know, when it was okay, once your kids got to a certain point where you can kind of put yourself back into what your craft is and what you want to do as a creative person?
So I never even thought I was creative. I grew up, I grew up and I thought, being number 5 of 6 kids, you were told who you were. You're the salesperson, you're the salesperson, you're the salesperson. So guess what? I ended up being a great salesperson. And so I never thought that I had any creativity at all. It was when Libby was a junior in high school. And I was sitting in some of these meetings at Facebook when I was rolling my eyes. I'm like, this is a really valuable seat. I actually think I have to give this seat up to somebody else. If I can't commit to it fully, then please have the respect to give it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So the story is my sister on my 50th birthday made me this little diamond crescent moon. And we had some friends down in Tulum, and 2 of my sisters ended up there, and she gave me this moon, and I said, oh, this is so pretty. Where'd you get it? She said, I made it. She was a dentist. It's like, you made this moon? How is that possible? Well, so many people complimented me on this moon that, and we're talking about the rise of small business at Facebook in these client council meetings. I was like, we're gonna sell moons on Facebook. That's what, like, I just needed a product. But it wasn't until like maybe 2 years ago that I realized that I have a creative bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's so new, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's why we like the Martha's Vineyard projects that we're doing, because it's a creative outlet, and the kids love it.
Yeah.
They think it's fantastic, and I can hear them talking to their friends about it, and they're proud, and they like to talk about it. But I knew when they were in high school, you have to be around. Like, you can't.
Yeah, you can't just check out.
You can't.
No.
It's if you can be around, you have to be around. And I learned that from another friend of mine who went through it. So I felt really good that I was there, especially junior and senior year for Libby, and then all the years for Libby, for Ellie and Jack. And I go back into the barn and I work on Livewell, and I show them what I make and make them try it on, and ask Jack to give it to his girlfriend. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with that. And so it's good. And then they see us creating this new little spot in the vineyard, and we talk about how that's going. So it's really fun to have that come out.
So you bring them in with you in some ways.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's also really good to see that. I think one of the things that will leave them is that you can get off something that's got a great brand, and it's really fun to be at and to talk about, and you can leave that, but you can start something new, and that too can be successful in just a different way.
Right.
So I think that's what actually they won't remember me so much for Facebook. I think that they'll remember me that I started this little business, Livewell, and we have these little houses that we decorated and flip them and whatever.
Right.
So I think that's what they're gonna.
Yeah, because it means something to them. It's part of their life. Yeah, that's great.
It's fun.
Senior employee 30.
The sculpture looks like David Smith meets Keith Haring.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Two heroes. I appreciate that.
I was
David
just
Smith,
thinking
wow.
about what you said. I'm here. Polar opposite. I've been told since I was little, like, you're the artist, you're the creative one, you're the. It eventually led to something that I realized I'm like, well, I'm a builder, and now I'm starting to realize, no, you're a systems thinker. Like, you just like completely
That makes
opposite.
sense.
Yeah, but we're so related.
Remember that story? You were at the barn, and you told the story about Sarah.
That's funny. I just told that story to an undergrad. I'm teaching my first
Great story.
undergrad class. We're starting grad school, and I need to teach this undergrad class. Of course, I say I'll teach you if I can name the class. And so I'm teaching Kendrick Lamar and existential psychology to 17 to 18, 19-year-olds. Making most of the hip hop albums and classic films, Truffaut and Kurosawa. Anyway, and using those to explore existentialism, right? So I just told this story to a couple of days ago in class. Yeah. So Sarah was little, my daughter Sarah was little. We've always shared very similar skewed sense of humor. She was watching Monty Python with me when she was like 3 and 4 years old. Enjoyed playing pranks. Favorite family prank I'll share with you is Oreos. Take the first few rows. Okay? Open up the Oreos, get an X-Acto blade or a sharp knife, cut out the center of the cream, so you would have like a ring of cream left outside. Fill it with toothpaste or mayonnaise or hot sauce. Put the cap back on, so from the outside it looks like a little Oreo. You do that for a dozen Oreos, put them back in the box, leave them, and wait. But Sarah was little one day. She'd, as little kids do, in the afternoon, she'd get a little snack, and she'd go downstairs and she'd watch Caillou and Big Comfy Couch. Remember those two? Those two on back and back. Anyway, she'd go downstairs and she'd have her cookies, and I'm in the kitchen just waiting. Sure enough, a minute or two after she gets down there, I hear this, Daddy! She comes running up the stairs. Can I do this to Mommy? So that's who we are together since she was,
So the story Claire's pointing to, that's context of the story. At one point when she was around 5 or 6, I caught myself doing something constantly. And it was this: Sarah, you're so funny. You're so funny. This kid, you can't believe how funny this kid is. She is so funny. You are so funny. And I stopped. The only kid, Daddy's little girl, like the whole, the whole textbook thing, right? From a week old, she had me, right? Only kid at home, same thing, altered my life to try to be at home as much as possible, so around a lot. And here she is at 4 and 5 years old, and it's basically God. Thou art funny. Right? I may as well have carved it on a tablet. Thou shalt be funny. And what does that do? It just limits expression. It names her. And I stopped doing it. Speak to my experience. When you put vinegar in your mother's water bottle, that made me laugh. So I speak to my experience of it, but not naming her. We don't allow people to name themselves. You're creative. You're not creative. You're smart. You're not smart. You're shy. You're whatever.
I also think it's a cop-out when people say to me, like, oh, it's just because you're a good marketer that you can start Livewell. I'm like, huh? I don't think so. Like, I could never do that because I don't know how to make jewelry. I'm like, well, I didn't either. I definitely didn't. And, well, you can only do that because you have business experience. No, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. You just have to do it.
It's a fascinating country, so in countries so obsessed with freedom. It's like so few people are free from the only thing that matters. They're all preconceptions about things. Just their own mental blockages around what I am. And
Powerful.
But how much of that is generational, do you think? Like, do you think that that's, I feel like I could see the lines from my grandparents from the Depression era and how they passed it to my parents, and like, there's not enough, this, that, and the other thing. And then there's two different reactions that I'm seeing. One is your parents get enough and they go bonkers and they just spend way too much, and then you're spoiled. And then there's the other parents who do nothing for their kids, like, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that. And then it's like, so which is it? I think that like, you're coming from a healthy perspective and what your upbringing is, or I don't know you. But the whole idea is that you see things for what they are, and you can make adjustments without the preconceptions. There's so much, I feel like, generational, like, this is the way it is. How do you spread that up? How do you peel that off? What tools do you have to give to people to get over that stuff? I think that's a big deal.
What worked for you?
What worked for me?
Yeah.
Questioning pretty much everything. I'm not sure it's all working yet, but
Is working enough that you have access to the question?
yeah, I think questioning everything, making sure that at the end of the day, I'm looking myself in the mirror and seeing what's up. Making decisions and sticking with them, even if they end up being kind of the wrong ones. You can't really go backwards. You can turn around, but you can't go backwards, so you kind of have to live with it one way or the other. And then just being okay with that, I don't know. You can't get it right every time.
That's exactly what we recommend.
All right. Cool.
Just what we recommend.
You got any positions open?
We need less of smart answers from smart people and more of spaces in which you can just do what you did, which is ask a question, explore a question, and find your answer for the question.
Yeah.
Who cares what I say? Who cares what Claire says in the context of that question for you?
100%. My parents were never around. I had to find my own answers,
But people don't have access to those kind of communities. We have access to, all the wisdom of the last 5,000 years captured in a beautiful filtered image on Instagram, And you get that, it's a little sugar rush. It's motivational sugar. It's like, oh, I got it. And then you go back to your life. But we don't have communities, whether they're, 5 people in a barn, or 30, what we used to have in church, where I can just explore the question and find my answer for it. So who cares what we say about your question? What do you say? Yes, ma'am?
So it was a rich upbringing, 6 kids. That is quite a culture to come out of. But who were the men or women in your life as a little girl that you looked at that really had a profound impact on who you are?
You know, I've talked about this with my sisters. Some of my sisters were like, God, who's our role model? And my husband, we've talked about it. I think my sisters, we helped each other.
I'm one of 6.
Right?
So that's sort of what I was
It's
tuning
just-
into. Is it just the group
I think
that
it's
you
the
sort
group.
of feed
There's
off
no
of?
one
or-
individual that I had my eye on, like, wow. More, and I mentioned it earlier, what I wanted to move away from. I'm like, well, I don't want that. I definitely don't want that. Clearly don't want that. That looks yucky. And being number 5,
Right.
I had the opportunity to do that. But yeah, no one stood out other than the collective.
Interesting. Thanks, very Thank you.
It's the theme, you know, community, relationships, the collective, that's tonight's theme.
The collective.
The collective.
Yeah.
I say this jokingly, I so desperately mean it. I would love for, you know, we get everything. They're all on Facebook now, right? Can we just have a town hall meeting of everybody on the planet and say, okay, for the next century, we're done with, you know, kind of big men. Women, but it's primarily big men, we're done.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be the collective for a century. It's all just so abstract, it's so easy, whether they're monsters or they're saviors, it's just so easy to kind of, you know, have that be our reference point versus the 5 people around us, you know?
I think New Haven uses Facebook very successfully in this community, more than any place I've ever seen. I mean, there's just so many people and they crisscross with each other, and I think some of your programs last year, I think helped. So I think we're seeing some pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, Steve. I think you're right. One of the more, you know, useful utilitarian aspects of Facebook for me is very localized. Right? Everybody who's kind of doing things in New Haven does a really good job of interconnecting.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's interesting, just to comment maybe on that. It's sort of been interesting to me to see how like online communities, virtual communities, create offline communities. So we're here, I'm here, so I'm just going to use online,
Right.
social media and so forth. But the idea not just of communities that are running schools, ideas, but also practice change, practice. It's still, ideas are cheap. That comes into my mind as illumination and life-changing, but my practice, living that out is totally different, and that takes sustained community. So it's very good to hear that you're doing this program.
Yeah, it's we've just found this consistent, right? It's you know, learning about things is one thing, right? But engaging with and embodying them is not something you get. It's like the gym. You don't get fit and then you're done, right? It's constant.
Every day.
Every day. So too with relationships, you know, community. It's not something you get done. What do you got, Tiffany? You good? You're full?
Quality, not quantity.
Quality on my list now. I used to joke with clients, like, you know, if the contract was 9 months to get X done, if it takes less time, you owe me more money. You got your outcome, plus you saved some time. That's right. You on that.
It's like the tavern secret.
Really? There's a bonus for getting it done early, so you all owe us 20% of your admission fee. That's a bonus.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I want to do a quick little administrative thing, and then we do a proper closeout. If you don't
Okay,
mind.
no problem.
Some people, you know, to thank, right? Our friends in the corner from Alignment, Danelle, Scott, Tiffany. Long-term partners, here in the district ecosystem, all this equipment and kind of those stuff, the masters of having, people like us who have kind of, stuttering, convoluted thoughts and putting it into content packages where after the fact it's like, wow, that looks good. Nikki Kraus, Executive Director of Holbert, back here, clothing school, first one on the East Coast. We are borrowing her furniture.
Please storing it for us.
Mamoons, New Haven, and you have an institution. I'm not pointing to anybody, I'm pointing to the camera. We hold a little kind of reception for our kind of community partners ahead of each of these things. And so public shout out to Mamoons for once again supplying some amazing food. If you all don't know about Mamoons, New Haven institution.
Yeah.
Howe Street, a bunch of other places, but Howe Street is, kind of central. They did nothing, but I mentioned about every single unstuck because I'm just a homer. Be a sushi, first sustainable sushi restaurant. Go now. Late night menu is almost available, $7. Plate of sushi, go. Who am I missing, Paul? There's a lot. And you talk about the community, right? I mean, it's just, for just little events like this, it's amazing how, wide the community is and the number of people that support and help and, to kind of have stuff like this happen. It's really fascinating. I'm just pretty and I talk to them so they put me up here, but, but it's like all the work. So Claire, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be out here, for driving all the way. I love you, I love your family. It's an honor that you've been part of my life and part of our community for as long as you have, and continue to be excited about what's next.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.